do you consider yourself a man of the left overall, if one is to take a step back and sort of look at your political priors?
I've generally avoided political labels, not to be like coy or strategic, but because so often they mean different things to different people, but also they mean different things in different areas, right? So to be a leftist in economics might mean something very different than being a leftist in foreign policy or civil liberties or cultural issues. Obviously, I have a lot of affinity for some people on the left. I think Lula, for example, is someone I have a lot of admiration for. I've been outspoken in defense of Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn and Evo Morales in Bolivia. So make of that what you will. But, it actually getting back to that question, and I think Shadi asked me earlier, just to tie it into this too, about the whole woke issue and how things are, how you compare that in Brazil and in the United States, and the idea of systemic racism and the like. I think that one of the reasons, I've obviously become more alienated from the American left. No, I've long been alienated from American establishment liberalism, but I've become more alienated from the American left, in part because of those issues that Shadi was referring to earlier, which is, the whole idea of like woke repression, and attacks on free speech. And you guys were asking me, I wrote in the book about systemic racism in Brazil, but how does that compare to it in the U.S.? I think there's systemic racism in Brazil, and I think there's systemic racism in the U.S. The reason why I am opposed to woke ideology is not because I don't think the problem that it purports to try to address is really a problem. I think those are really problems. I think that woke ideology is not a solution to those problems. I think that it's really about an attempt to eliminate other people's rights for the sake of control and power, both in Brazil and, it's interesting, in Brazil, similar to in the United States, there has been what I regard as some excessive attempts to fight back against the Bolsonaro movement. The Supreme Court, for example, began by ordering the Twitter and Facebook accounts closed of some of the more radical Bolsonaristas. They then began a criminal investigation into what they called fake news, and claimed that they were also investigating potential plots against democracy. And they ordered some of the most vicious Bolsonaristas, who I actually sued and fought with, into prison with no trial, pending their trial. And I've been outspoken about condemning that as well, alienating some people on the left, which sometimes is a problem because my husband is a member of Congress with the left-wing Socialist Party. And whenever I deviate from left-wing dogma, it can create problems for him, not just for me the way it does in the US, but, I still do it because I think every faction, every dogma, every ideology is capable of abuse. And so I of course, I see and saw all the reasons why Trump was often despicable, potentially dangerous. I saw all the same things everybody else saw. But I was also very worried that the more powerful institutions opposed to him were going to start using their own repressive and anti-democratic and illiberal tactics in order to oppose them. And so oftentimes I'm denouncing the left or I'm denouncing liberalism in the United States, but I don't feel like it's because I've removed myself from the left. I feel like it's because they have. It's because they've kind of repudiated their belief in what to me were always defining left-wing values. I mean, the free speech movement in the left in the United States was really a byproduct of the left. The ACLU were Jewish leftists. The most important First Amendment cases that I used to use when I did free speech cases as a lawyer were written by the left wing and liberal members of the Supreme Court. The free speech movement began in Berkeley. My childhood heroes were those Jewish lawyers at the ACLU who defended the right of Nazis to march through Skokie. So, you look at that, or you look at left-wing movements to, take the state and moralizers out of people's private consensual lives of sex and drug use and the like. And I see the left now becoming increasingly repressive in ways that I just don't support. And I think, journalism, and I think the media is often at the root of it. And one of the reasons why I spend a lot of time criticizing other journalists and criticizing media outlet is not because I hate journalism, but exactly because I actually venerate journalism. I went into journalism because I really believe that it has a vital role to play in any democracy. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to stand outside of comfort zones and to question and to poke at and to scrutinize prevailing orthodoxies and pieties in powerful elite circles. And that's something that I think journalists so often fail to do. They often end up doing the reverse in a way that really harms society and that has become increasingly kind of corrosive of some of our core freedoms. So it's hard to say, if you say to me, do you identify as a leftist? If by left you mean Noam Chomsky, in a lot of ways, I'll say yes. But if you say, do you consider yourself part of the left? And that means Nancy Pelosi or kind of millennial woke ideology warriors, I would say absolutely not.